You ever reach a point where you look around and think, this can't be it? The same routines, the same people, the same quiet ache in your chest. You know something has to change, but the thought of changing feels terrifying. So you stay. Until one day, you can't anymore. This is where transformation begins. Step 1. Awareness. Before action, before you can change your life, you have to understand it. Not the version you post online, not the one you explain to others, but the raw, unfiltered reality of how you live, think, and feel. Most people want to move fast. They want results, transformation, reinvention, but they skip the most important step, awareness. Without awareness, every change is temporary, every decision reactive. You can't build a new life on top of blind spots. Awareness forces you to slow down and actually see what's happening beneath the surface. It's not about judging yourself. It's about recognizing the patterns that keep you in cycles of frustration and calling them by their real names. It's noticing the way you distract yourself when you're uncomfortable, the way you repeat the same mistakes because they feel familiar, the way you tell stories that make you feel like a victim instead of an active participant in your own life. Awareness is uncomfortable because it exposes the truth, not the dramatic truth, but the quiet, everyday one that you've ignored for years. To become aware is to step out of autopilot. It's realizing that most of your life has been guided by habits you didn't consciously choose. The way you react when you're hurt, the people you attract, the jobs you settle for, even the limits you place on what's possible. All of it is a reflection of the internal programming you've accepted as normal. Awareness asks you to stop blaming the external world long enough to notice your internal world. It asks you to watch your thoughts without defending them, to observe your emotions without drowning in them, to become curious instead of critical. You begin to see that awareness is not the same as thinking, it's witnessing. Thinking keeps you trapped in the story. Awareness helps you step outside of it. Once you start seeing things clearly, you can't unsee them. You notice how certain environments drain you, how specific people trigger you, how your own words reinforce limitation. And while that level of clarity can be overwhelming, it's also the beginning of real freedom. The reason most people resist awareness is because it demands responsibility. When you become aware of your role in your unhappiness, you lose the luxury of pretending it's someone else's fault. Awareness doesn't give you immediate answers. It gives you insight. It shows you that you've been living on repeat, confusing movement with progress, reacting instead of responding. But once you know that, you can begin to choose differently. You start asking questions that cut through the surface. Why do I keep attracting the same problems? What am I avoiding when I stay busy? What emotion do I refuse to feel? These questions open doors you didn't know existed. They reveal truths that might hurt at first, but ultimately heal. Awareness teaches you that clarity must come before change, that every external shift begins with an internal realization. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about finally understanding yourself deeply enough to stop running in circles and start moving with intention. Step 2. The pain of staying the same. There comes a moment in every person's life when comfort starts to feel like suffocation. You wake up one morning and the things that once made you feel safe now feel heavy. The job you convinced yourself was good enough starts to feel meaningless. The relationships you stayed in for stability begin to drain your energy. The routines you clung to for control start to feel like cages. It's subtle at first, a quiet discontent, a whisper that something's off. You try to ignore it, telling yourself that everyone feels this way sometimes, that you should just be grateful, that change is too risky, but that whisper doesn't go away. It grows louder every time you lie to yourself about being fine. Eventually, the ache of staying the same becomes louder than the fear of what comes next. That's the breaking point, not dramatic, not cinematic, just an internal knowing that you can't keep pretending. The pain of staying the same often hides behind busyness. You fill your days with noise, endless scrolling, constant work, unnecessary conversations, anything that keeps you from sitting still with your own thoughts. Because when you stop, even for a moment, the truth catches up. You start to feel the weight of all the compromises you've made to avoid discomfort. You start to notice how much energy you spend maintaining an identity that doesn't fit anymore. You begin to see that what you call stability is actually fear wearing a disguise. You tell yourself that you can't change because of timing, money, or responsibility. But deep down, You know that what you're really afraid of is losing the familiar version of yourself, even if that version is miserable. There's a kind of quiet suffering that comes from living a life misaligned with your soul. You laugh in public, but it doesn't reach your eyes. You feel the weight of days blending into one another, each one a repeat of the last. You start counting years instead of memories. You tell yourself that you're surviving, and maybe you are, but survival isn't the same as living. The body can adapt to almost anything, even emotional pain, and that's the danger. You start normalizing your unhappiness. You convince yourself that the numbness is peace, that your lack of excitement is maturity, that giving up on dreams is simply growing up. But the body always remembers what the mind tries to forget. It keeps sending signals: anxiety, exhaustion, irritability, reminders that you're out of alignment. Eventually, the discomfort of staying stagnant becomes unbearable. You find yourself angry for no reason, restless in situations that used to feel easy, drawn to ideas or people that reflect the freedom you've been suppressing. You start realizing that pain has a purpose. It's not punishment, it's direction. It's life trying to get your attention, urging you to evolve, to let go, to move. But most people misunderstand this stage. They interpret the growing pain as a sign that something's wrong, when in truth, it's a sign that something new is trying to emerge. The pain of staying the same is not there to destroy you. It's there to show you that you've outgrown the version of yourself you've been trying so hard to protect. Step 3. Radical honesty. There is a point in life where pretending stops working. You can only hide behind distractions, excuses, and partial truths for so long before reality catches up. Radical honesty is the moment when you stop negotiating with your own denial. It's when you decide that self-deception is no longer an option, no matter how uncomfortable the truth may be. Most people think honesty is about telling others the truth, but it starts much deeper than that. It begins with telling yourself the truth about who you are, what you want, and what you've been avoiding. This kind of honesty isn't soft or comforting. It's raw. It strips away the illusions you've built to make life bearable. It forces you to face the parts of yourself that you'd rather edit out. The bitterness, the jealousy, the regret, the fear. Radical honesty doesn't destroy you, but it does dismantle the version of you that was built to please others. When you begin practicing this level of truth, it feels like losing control. You start seeing all the places where you've been pretending you're happy in relationships that drain you, pretending your job aligns with your purpose, pretending you don't care when you clearly do. It's uncomfortable because it shatters the narratives that gave you a sense of stability. But stability built on self-denial isn't real. It's fragile. Radical honesty asks you to walk through that fragility instead of protecting it. It asks you to admit when something isn't working without cushioning it with maybes and somedays. It asks you to own your mistakes without blaming timing or circumstance. And that's where real change begins, in the space where excuses end and truth takes over. Being radically honest doesn't mean being cruel or reckless with your words. It means being deeply aligned with reality. It means asking yourself questions that don't have easy answers. What do I actually want? What am I pretending not to see? What would my life look like if I stopped lying to myself? These questions can dismantle entire belief systems. They challenge your identity, your choices, and your comfort. They make you realize how much of your life has been constructed around fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of being seen for who you really are. But there's power in exposure. Once the truth is out in the open, it loses its control over you. The lies you tell yourself might feel protective, but they keep you stuck in patterns you claim to hate. Radical honesty is not a one-time confession. It's a daily practice. It means choosing clarity over comfort, even when that clarity hurts. It means admitting when your values have shifted, when your boundaries have been crossed, when your old dreams no longer inspire you. It's acknowledging that growth requires endings, the end of pretending, the end of tolerating, the end of numbing yourself to stay acceptable. And while the process of becoming honest can feel isolating, it's also liberating. Because once you face the truth about your life, you stop being afraid of it. The lies lose their power, the masks lose their purpose. And what remains is something unfiltered, vulnerable, and real, the foundation of who you truly are. Step 4. Accountability without excuses. There's a moment in every transformation when you realize that no one is coming to save you. Not your parents, not your friends, not your circumstances, not even luck. That moment can feel both terrifying and freeing, because it leaves you face to face with one unshakable truth. Your life is your responsibility. Accountability without excuses is the turning point where blame stops being an option. It's when you look at the chaos, the patterns, the pain, and instead of pointing outward, you turn inward. It's the recognition that even if what happened to you wasn't your fault, how you respond to it still is. Most people never reach this point because accountability feels like judgment. It's easier to believe you were powerless than to admit you made choices that contributed to your own stagnation. But taking responsibility isn't self-blame, it's self-liberation. It means reclaiming the power you gave away when you decided that external forces dictated your future. Excuses are the most seductive form of self-sabotage. They sound reasonable, they sound logical. I didn't have enough time. I wasn't supported. I was too tired, too busy, too overwhelmed. But underneath every excuse lies a quiet admission. I chose not to prioritize it. When you start being radically accountable, you stop dressing avoidance as circumstance. You stop using the past as a permanent justification for the present. Accountability doesn't ask you to deny your pain. It asks you to stop letting that pain define your identity. It asks you to step out of the victim mindset, the one that quietly whispers that you're helpless, that things just happen to you, that change is something that belongs to people stronger or luckier than you. The truth is, everyone who's ever changed their life started from a place of disadvantage in some form. The difference is, they stopped waiting for conditions to be perfect before they took responsibility for what they could control. Accountability is not a punishment, it's an awakening. It strips away the illusions that kept you comfortable in your own limitations. It forces you to look at how your patterns repeat, not because of fate, but because of choice. The people you attract, the habits you maintain, the boundaries you ignore, all of it becomes a reflection of the standard you hold for yourself. When you accept that, it's painful because it means the version of you who wanted to be rescued can't exist anymore. But it's also the moment you gain real control. You begin to understand that your emotions don't justify inaction, that healing doesn't excuse avoidance, and that growth doesn't happen by accident. The accountability mindset teaches you discipline, not as punishment, but as proof that you can be trusted with your own potential. When you take accountability without excuses, life stops being something that happens to you and starts being something you actively create. You begin to notice how your thoughts shape your behavior and how your behavior shapes your reality. You stop needing validation for your progress because the proof exists in the quiet choices you make every day. It's not about perfection, it's about consistency. It's waking up and saying, I don't feel ready, but I'll do it anyway. It's acknowledging that no one will do the inner work for you. It's realizing that maturity isn't about control over others. It's about control over yourself. Accountability without excuses doesn't make life easier. It makes you stronger. It builds the kind of inner resilience that can withstand failure, judgment, and uncertainty because it's rooted in ownership. And once you understand that, nothing external can dictate your path anymore because you've learned to hold yourself accountable for who you're becoming, not for who you once were. Step 5. Discomfort is the doorway. Every real transformation begins with discomfort. Not the mild unease of trying something new, but the deep soul-level disruption that shakes the foundation of who you thought you were. Discomfort isn't a punishment, it's an invitation. It's life's way of signaling that you've reached the edge of your old identity and that something inside you is ready to evolve. Most people run from it. They interpret discomfort as a sign that something's wrong, that they've made a mistake, that they're on the wrong path. But in truth, discomfort is the first sign that you're finally moving. It's the resistance you feel when you begin stepping out of the patterns that kept you safe but small. Growth doesn't happen in stillness. It happens when the comfort zone starts to crumble. The friction, the tension, the unease, they're not obstacles to your progress. They are your progress. When you start to change, discomfort becomes your shadow. It follows you into every decision that challenges the old version of yourself. It's there when you say no to the people who once defined your worth. It's there when you choose boundaries over approval, discipline over distraction, truth over convenience. You'll feel it in your chest, that tightness, that uncertainty, as if you're walking without a map. And in a way, you are. because change means stepping into the unknown, and the unknown never feels safe. Your mind will resist it, whispering old stories to pull you back to the familiar. It will convince you that you're losing something: stability, connection, identity, when in reality, you're shedding layers that no longer belong to the person you're becoming. Discomfort is the body's way of alerting you that you're in unfamiliar territory, but unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. It means alive. Most people want change without the chaos that comes with it. They want to evolve without feeling lost, to grow without grieving their past selves. But transformation isn't a clean process. It's a dismantling. You'll have moments when you question everything, when you wonder if you're actually making progress or just falling apart. That uncertainty is the exact place where your old patterns begin to dissolve. The discomfort you feel in those moments is evidence that you're no longer aligned with what's false. It's the tension between who you were and who you're becoming. And the more you try to avoid that discomfort, the longer you prolong the transition. Avoidance only strengthens what you're trying to outgrow. True change requires surrender, not to pain itself, but to the process of becoming. The people around you might not understand your discomfort. They may interpret your withdrawal, your silence, or your intensity as instability, when in reality, it's recalibration. You're reprogramming your mind, your habits, your beliefs, and that's not supposed to feel peaceful. The discomfort is proof that something inside you refuses to stay the same. It's a test of endurance, a mirror reflecting your strength, a threshold between the life you've known and the life you're meant to live. The truth is, the doorway to transformation has never been marked by ease or certainty. It's marked by the willingness to walk through fear, confusion, and resistance without needing to know what's on the other side. Because the moment you stop running from discomfort and start moving through it, you begin to understand that it was never your enemy. It was the path itself. Step 6, the quiet rebirth. Rebirth doesn't happen in noise or chaos. It happens in silence. It begins when everything that once defined you starts to lose its meaning. The titles, the relationships, the goals that used to anchor you, suddenly they don't hold the same weight. It's disorienting at first because the world teaches you that growth should look loud and visible, like a public victory or a clear before and after story. But real transformation is almost invisible. It happens in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when you're sitting in the ruins of who you used to be, trying to remember why you started, trying to understand who you are without all the external markers that once gave you worth. The quiet rebirth begins when you stop performing healing and start actually living it, when you stop announcing change and start embodying it. It's not glamorous. There are no fireworks, no applause. It's long stretches of solitude, confusion, and silence. You start detaching from things that once gave you identity: the need to be liked, the desire to prove yourself, the obsession with being understood. People might think you're distant or withdrawn, but what's really happening is much deeper. You're shedding layers that no longer fit. You begin to realize that healing isn't about becoming a new person. It's about returning to the person you were before the world told you who to be. This part of transformation is not about movement. It's about stillness. It's when you learn to sit with yourself without distraction, to let your emotions rise and fall without immediately trying to fix them. You begin to understand that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing, to simply allow the internal shifts to unfold at their own pace. In the quiet rebirth, you lose more than you gain. You lose certainty, you lose direction, you lose the comfort of being understood. But what you receive in return is something more valuable: peace. Not the kind that depends on perfect circumstances, but the kind that lives inside you, regardless of them. You begin to see beauty in simplicity, meaning in small things, purpose in presence. You stop chasing validation and start valuing alignment. You stop needing to prove your worth because you finally start feeling it. The old you, the one built on performance, fear, and approval, fades quietly, not with drama or resistance, but with a kind of calm surrender. The death of the old self is not a single moment. It's a gradual release, a series of small goodbyes that make space for something truer to emerge. This stage is subtle, and that's why most people miss it. They confuse quiet with stagnation, solitude with loneliness, calm with complacency, but the quiet rebirth is none of those things. It's the sacred in between. the pause between letting go and becoming. It's when the soul reorganizes itself, when clarity starts to take form after the storm of change. You don't force this phase, you allow it. You learn to trust the process without demanding answers. You start noticing that the noise inside you begins to settle, that your inner dialogue softens, that life starts to feel less like a battle and more like a conversation. This is the rebirth. Not loud, not visible, but steady, grounded, and real. It's the phase where the person you've been dissolves so that the person you're meant to be can quietly rise. Change doesn't happen all at once. It begins the moment you stop running from yourself. Every ending, every discomfort, every truth you face is shaping who you're meant to become. You don't need permission to start over, only the courage to take the first step toward your new life.